Welcome to PottsCast with me, Potts, my producer friend Jordan.
Hello.
So we have a special guest today. Sometimes he's Barry from Watford. Sometimes he's Clinton Baptiste. Today he is Mr. Alex Lowe, beloved comic actor, starred in Phoenix Nights, Peep Show, 11 o'clock show, Peter Serafinowicz Show. Thanks for being here.
Lovely to be here. Honestly, I'm delighted anyone's interested. It's a really funny thing that I'm in my mid-50s now. And it's only, honestly, in the last 3 or 4 years that anyone has been remotely interested in anything I've ever done. Yeah.
I've always been interested.
Well, you're mad.
So, I mean, how has that sort of come about? I mean, I've heard you say about the Clinton character that there was a live show for Phoenix Nights, about 2015.
Yeah.
You found the love for the character again, do you think?
No, I mean, the real truth is when we did it in 2001 or whatever it was, I asked Peter Kay whether I could do it. I really wanted to do a stand-up character. And I sort of developed Barry from Watford instead, which was just based on my own Cockney relatives. But I asked him about doing Clinton, which seemed to me to be an absolutely obvious, fantastic end of the pier, larger than life, colourful, slightly ghastly, fraud. And Peter didn't want me to do it. He sort of hinted that he wouldn't be too happy about it. And I sort of didn't take it any further.
Okay.
And then when we did it again in 2015, I just asked him again, and he said, "Yeah, I don't mind. Do what you like." And so he was very kind. He gave me let me have the wig and the costume and all that stuff. And we have a sort of, a loose contract, which touch wood, he never really enacts. I never have to pay him any money, or we don't have to have long, protracted discussions about stuff I'm doing. But what I do is just make sure I keep him in the loop about if I get an offer to do anything. And he's always great, and lets me do what I want. But, occasionally people, I do, this is a rather long answer, but, sort of Memo or Cameo or any of those dedication apps, sometimes there'll be people want me to promote their businesses. And then there's a version of those apps where you literally do get paid lots of money for, mentioning people's firms and stuff. So I don't overstep that mark. I just figure he would come back and go, "Yeah, you're not allowed to just wholesale take the character and use it for a kind of lucrative contract."
Okay.
So that the answer is basically that in 2015, when we redid it, I thought I'd ask him again. So that's how Clinton is back on the scene,
And you think that's sort of, you're saying that like the last few years it's been more popular, so you feel like people are more interested in...
Yeah, I mean, this is not me showing off, but I think if I'm really honest, it's because I do a podcast and I go and do it live on the circuit. I've got Patreon now. I appear on, like I did a bit on TalkSport the other week. And,
nice.
I sort of tap up on people's things and do podcasts like this, so people are sort of aware of the character. And so I like to think, I can't pretend people don't come to see it because they like Phoenix Nights, but it really gives me a lot of a thrill when clearly they recognise stuff I do on the podcast or stuff I've done live or in my live tours. That's kind of quite gratifying. So it's not just about saying nonce or whatever it is from Phoenix Nights,
It is such a great character, though, obviously, and like you say, it resonates with so many people on Phoenix Nights. It just went. It's one of people's favourite episodes. It seems to be from the people that I speak to. They love that episode. They love the character. He only has a very short amount of screen time.
I'm hardly in it. It's embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing from where I'm standing.
No, it's I do feel a bit of a fraud talking about it, and people are.
He's meant to be a fraud.
Well, no, I mean as an actor. I mean, what happens is I occasionally have done Phoenix Nights general knowledge, quiz, pub quizzes, events where I go and host as Clinton. I do my stand up and then I host the general knowledge quiz. And I have not a clue about any of it because I don't think I watched any of it. I only watched my bit.
But it's not. It's not really repeated though.
No, it's not.
It's not.
No.
It's not. It's only available like physical media, which we know is not really a big thing anymore, and it's not really on streaming sites.
No,
is it? It's not on all four.
I don't know why Peter doesn't want it on there. I suppose
I think it's
no
fantastic.
idea.
But what I was going to ask you is, when you started doing the character, what point was it that you realised or thought that it was going to be great for a stand-up comedy environment as a character comedian? Because it so works, as I've seen from the videos.
Well, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? I always think people in Britain love a plucky loser, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
I probably said this before in other interviews. We like Eddie the Eagle Edwards or, Frank Bruno, people who sort of good triers. Yeah. And we don't like, the Americans are all about heroes. I've never understood this. Sort of American psyche is all about heroes and superheroes and people who are absolutely untouchable. But in Britain, for some reason, we love to see the cogs working, don't we? And with Clinton, it's something endearing about seeing someone. I always think if Clinton wasn't a clairvoyant medium, he'd be a second-hand car salesman or, someone with a bit of sleight of hand. And I mean, I might be wrong about this, but Derek Acora, who was, he was a professional footballer and it didn't quite work for him. I didn't
know that.
Yeah, I mean, I always imagine it one day he went, what am I going to do? I know. I'm a clairvoyant medium psychic. Yeah. So we like that sort of a trier, but we don't necessarily like anyone. It's obvious that England will never, that match against Italy.
Yeah.
I think we established earlier you're not really football fans, but we nearly beat it. It was so obvious. The next day, everyone would be going, if only.
Yeah.
If only they scored those penalties or whatever. And that's because it's the kind of English psyche. We like the sort of nearly, the bittersweet. And that's what Clinton's about. He's sort of a charlatan.
We did watch that. To be fair, but watching England play is a whole different ball game, literally. Yeah. And I was very upset about it. That's the only thing I was upset in football. And I believed I was saying, it's coming home. It didn't.
No, it didn't.
It didn't.
But I think you're right, Alex. I think if we did win, we'd have nothing to complain about the next time.
Right.
We'd know what to do.
We like that. And that's what Clinton is part of that setup. So English, kind of a trier who's not quite up to it. Sure. We like to see him fail. I mean, I used to do bits on Christian O'Connell's Absolute Radio show. I did loads on there, and the bit that people really liked was a character I played called Damon from the Oval, who was like the antithesis of, as you imagine, a Australian cool surfer. Mm-hmm. And I sort of always imagined he's like a hospital. And this kind of really like pathetic attempts of sticking up for himself to Christian. And Christian used to do this sort of horrible bullying. And it was so popular. And that's the sort of thing we like. We like to see that, this clown, who does he think he is?
Yeah.
And that's another sort of Englishy thing.
Sure.
So I think Clinton's in the same way. We like to see someone get slightly put down,
Sure.
Not as good as he thinks he is.
They do, because at the opening of your show, as you know from doing it every time, the first thing that people do, when you come on, they just watch your face and they're just waiting for it and they're waiting for it and you make them wait for it and then you hear that,
Right. Yeah, I know. Well, I always say to the compere MC, they would say, how do you want me to introduce you? And I always say, just really big it up with the magic and the mystical and all that stuff. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm saying this to someone backstage and they're going, what do you want me to say? And they can never remember it. So I'd say it's something about, it doesn't matter what specifically, but just something about the new age or, a bit of a departure for us now, ladies and gentlemen. There's someone, we normally do comedy here. I've seen this guy has extraordinary skills. Open your minds, open your chakras and all that. And so that when you come on, you go, yeah, right. People go, oh, great, I can relax. He's just absolute Burke.
It's fine.
But I remember doing that in Scotland. I did a sort of trade union club near Edinburgh. And I remember saying to the guy, I said, first of all, we all know this, you comedy types, that you need someone to come on, you need a good compere to whip everyone up so they're not so, they're just raising 100%. from their dormant state.
Yeah.
And I said to this guy, you know what I'm after? I said, oh, hey, I know, I got it. You know what you can say. I said, it's something about he can see in the past, he can see into the future, he can contact the dead, and he's very mystical man. Oh, yeah, I've got that. And he came on and he went, ladies and gentlemen, look backwards, look forwards. Clinton Baptiste. that was his warm up.
That's. I mean, did it help? Did it help at all?
I went, is that it?
I mean, so you've got Roller Coaster.
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
2024, and you're doing some shows in 2023, aren't you? Some sort of evening with Clinton Baptiste.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I've just been in the car coming down here thinking about, shall I try this one tonight? Shall I try that? But I'm so old, I can't always remember new bits.
Okay.
And I'm a real shitter when it comes to trying new bits. I mean, new comedy types, Martin, you'll know this. That horror of seeing the whites of people's eyes, they've paid, and you're going, am I really going to try this untested bit now? But I've got to really, because I'm quite busy and I've got so much to do before this tour starts, and I can't just trot out the same old stuff. I promise a new show.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm going to try a couple of new bits,
Okay.
Yeah, because the other thing is dropping in the odd line here and there, which I'm much more comfortable doing.
Like a shit sandwich.
A shit sandwich. Yeah. It takes so long. I mean, you would have to do 100 gigs and try something new every time in order. So you might as well just go, I'm going to have to try a wholesale 5 minutes or 3 minutes maybe. So I've started to do a few sort of new material nights. And I was on the other night with Julius Howe. Do you know Julius Howe?
I do. Julius Howe. I did a gig with him in Fareham. He's quite a dry act. I've gigged with him once before in Fareham at a working men's club. Yeah, I do know Julius.
So I went to do a thing with him in Southwark, in London.
Yeah.
And there were 10 people in the audience, 6 of which were the other comedians.
Nice.
And I just remember...
It's the greatest gigs, those are.
It sort of teaches you something.
It does.
Yeah, don't
do those gigs.
Don't do those gigs. If nothing else, it gives you a chance to say the words out loud in front of someone.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was all right, it's fine.
Sometimes...
if you're watching, Julius, sorry. I had a great time.
Yeah.
Sorry, we won't tell him it's video.
Don't tell him.
Never know. He'll never know. But also, you do obviously the character Barry from Watford, which that viral clip of you doing the carpet right. I'm doing
Minty biscuits.
Minty biscuits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like, sort of, how did that come about in the sense of you doing it? You were doing it with Ian
Lee, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And but when I heard it, and I'm probably not the only one here. When I first heard it, I thought it was a really. It wasn't a character. I thought it was an old bloke, and I genuinely thought it was a guy from Watford called back. Is that a lot of misconception? Well,
first of all, I mean, I'd always been looking, as I said, with this Clinton character and all that. I've been looking for something to do, a character to do.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd like to say it was just an organic thing, but I'm much more sort of gimlet-eyed and ambitious than that. So it's based on all my Cockney forebears who, before we moved to Pinner, during the war, from southeast London, where there was an armament store near my grandparents in the war, and they were really terrified. They moved out. There was a move to get people into the Green Belt,
Right, yeah.
So all these old Cockneys from southeast London moved to northwest London, where I grew up. Yeah. Now, I grew up in Pinner. I couldn't be more middle class. It's where they filmed May to December. It's where they filmed The Good Life. It's lovely and middle classy. Yeah. But all my old Cockney jing-jongs, they're all old, so like these old Cockney, And they're all market traders and shopkeepers and all that sort of stuff. They're all dead now. But thanks for laughing at that. And they're all heart. That's what I like about it. And so on my dad's side, and then my mum's side, he was a shopkeeper in Soho, not that kind of shop, and hardware shop. And so basically, I can't remember the question, but basically, it was an easy voice to do just because I grew up with all that and sort of. When older people, the esophagus just comes a little bit, and it all drops a bit, So I just remember thinking, that's a character. But I used to do things like jongleurs and these
yeah.
absolutely terrifying. And because I'm much more of an actor than I am a stand-up, I just didn't do my research. I don't come from a stand-up background. I'm much more, an actor.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, oh, well, that's what people do. They do jongleurs, and it was quite well paid jongleurs. This is like 15 years ago, something like that. And I just started doing these gigs, and of course it was absolutely terrifying because you're doing this nicely observed 3-dimensional character.
Yeah.
I had prosthetic face.
You did, yeah.
I used to put on that, get there like an hour and a half before, do all this, and you come on to a load of staggered hens. You're going, what's this? Bloody hell, who's that? And there's something odd about the face, and you want to speak to the audience. It's actually quite, although you feel it as a performer, without being too pretentious, quite protected by this literal physical mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking to the audience of drunken stags and hens, it was not great. I mean, 50% of the time it went fine, but if it went badly, it was really horrible. And I think I even got alopecia as a result of the stress of doing jongleurs. It was so, sort of violent and loud and
Those gigs are difficult in
just
themselves.
awful. And I don't know what I was thinking. I in the end, I just said to I did a lot of gigs as Barry, which were great, lovely. But it was particularly those jongleurs gigs. I thought, I don't know how I've stumbled in on this. And it's been explained to me since that a lot of those people buy a package trip, not so much now, jongleurs has changed hands, but you would do paintball, and then you would have some comedy, then some cheap food, and then a disco, and then some cheap booze. So sometimes for some of the comedy is just a distraction. They don't even want to go and see comedy. So you doing your nicely observed old man, they're going, oh, fuck that. Let's get on with some shagging, on the dance floor,
I just love that bit. Like I said, the clip that goes viral. The bit of he sort of like, you just look more disappointed every time he goes, yeah, but can you just do it a little bit differently? And and at the end of it, he just, well, you're an arsehole, mate.
Well, do you know what?
I don't even know if it's impromptu, but it
was, yeah.
It seemed like it didn't even look scripted. It looked like you genuinely just getting pissed off.
Well, I tell you what it was. We did. There's my old voice agent, Hobbs. Well, they are my voice agent, Hobson's Voices, and it's the engineer Jonathan, and we were there filming something else. We had this idea, which is out on the internet. I think it's a really funny idea. Barry's Guide to Using the Internet. So it was an old guy, and you just see the cursor going, and you see him going, "That's the editor." Capital letter, and then you just see on the screen, really terrible attempt at, typing. And I was sort of between takes. I just thought, I just wanted to try this, Jonathan. I didn't even have a script. I was sort of improvising that. And I can't believe how it's all over the place.
It's crazy that it can happen in comedy where you spend all this time writing something, thinking about the joke, thinking about the wordplay, and then you go and say something off the cuff and they die laughing. You're like, why did I bother with that for like weeks and like months and stuff? And then you're like, oh, right, well, I'll do that again. And sometimes it's difficult to get that lightning in a bottle. And again, you're just sort of like, you just got it because it was an off the cuff remark. But when it's written, suddenly you think about it. It's comedy is
it is a strange one. I mean, I occasionally do. You say something that's a bit of a non sequitur, and it gets a laugh, and you think it doesn't really make sense, but for some reason, if you, as you say, if you really analyse that gag, you go, I don't even know why you're laughing at that because it doesn't actually stack up properly.
Most comedy shows I do. To be fair, that is literally how I see it. But But when also when obviously we were talking about Peep Show, you did Peep Show.
Oh yeah.
How was that as an experience? Because that isn't filmed as an actor. That's not filmed in a traditional manner. It's to do with head cams, and then they will shoot it, and then they will shoot it from the other perspective, or making sure that the head cam is not being recorded by the other head cam. Was that difficult as an actor to do, or was it really fun and not as baffling as it sounded like it would be as a process?
From what I remember from that, just because it was like me interviewing Jeremy, it was a sort. Was it Jeremy? The other one?
Yeah, that's right.
Mitchell.
It is Jeremy.
No,
Robert Webb.
Robert Webb in the trade.
This was in near my house in Watford, just coincidentally. But I think all we did was, I don't know whether he had a camera on here. I think it was just, because it was quite a formal setup, just like any other.
Yeah.
But I mean, as I say, I'm much more of an actor than a stand-up, and I spent many, many years. I know this business about hitting your marks and sitting there and catching the light, and you might want to move in here, and not as much with that, but I was probably quite happy with that. My only thing as I get older is remembering lines. That's my terror. I always think when you go and do TV as an actor, a car picks you up and you go there and some young runner says, "Do you want a cup of tea?" "Oh yeah, thanks. Here's your dressing room. We've put the heating on for you. Do you want some breakfast?" "Yeah, bring you some breakfast." And then I always think the very least you can do is know your lines.
Yeah, of course.
And there's been people rigging lights and stuff from 3 a.m. and you turn up on the set. And particularly, me, I've made a career for 30 years, whatever it is, of sort of playing guests in parts. I've rarely done long-running series.
Yeah.
I'm always playing bloke who turns up in something. So quite often you're in the hotel the night before going, bloody hell, I've got to get these lines right. Or they all know each other. The dress in the makeup, they're all chatting, they're all friendly. The one thing you must do is know the bloody lines, because it's all a bit intimidating. And they go, right, let's have a rehearsal now, please. Heads of department coming in, you're going, oh my God, what's the line? What are the lines? So that's the only thing I really get nervous about, is just physically knowing the lines.
I think that in comedy is also the same as remembering the jokes and stuff, because you can have it where you hit a blank. I told you about the first time I did comedy at that gig. I went on stage, Jordan was there, he was there at my first ever gig in 2017, and I still remember this day going up on the stage and I forgot everything immediately, completely everything, and it only slowly, luckily, came back to me as it went on. And you can't go, hang on a minute, guys, you got to wait a second, hang on a minute, you can't do that, and no. And you don't really want to do it with a film crew either. I suppose the only thing for Peep Show, and I don't know if they had it, is that obviously you are looking directly at the camera. Could they just do the auto cue?
That's a good point. I don't know why they didn't do it. I suppose because they can see your eyes going like that.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're like me and you're going.
But I suppose, like you said as well, you're an actor. You should know. That's your part.
I think you just got to know it. I know. I won't say his name, but I've got a friend of mine who, I know two people who wanted lines written down.
Right.
Who got pulled up on not knowing the lines. The least you can do is know the bloody words.
They always say, didn't they, that Johnny Depp, when he was on, was it Pirates of the Caribbean, he had an earpiece feeding it to him, and I reckon that's true.
But when we did Phoenix Nights live, there was an auto cue because
you've got to have a safety.
Well, except I go out to the audience, so I couldn't do that either.
Okay.
And it was like terrifying because being comic relief, there wasn't a lot of time to rehearse.
Yeah.
We were in a big sort of like an aircraft hangar in Wakefield. I assume that's where everyone rehearses for big concerts or something.
Yeah.
And we only had like a couple of days there, and suddenly we were at Manchester Arena going, oh my God, there's going to be 15,000 people.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realised, well, I'm not going to be able to use the auto cue when I go into the audience. So that was pretty nerve-wracking. But I think the other thing is, you've got many years to not be able to remember your own name. You might as well try and use this muscle. Not for you young people, but when you get to my age, you think, shit, I've got to keep using everything. Good question. I don't know. I really, really like money. It's pretty grim. I'm going to drop the C-bomb in a minute. This is shit. I'm married. I've got kids, know.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pull anyone.